up, you beautiful bastards? Hope you're having a fantastic Wednesday. My name is Michelle Carre, and let's just jump right into it.
Love it. There you go. We're good.
Boom. Another Wednesday, another temporary host of the Philip DeFranco Show fired. Michelle Carre. Jacket was just too awesome. I felt like she was flexing on me. Not the appropriate time or place, Michelle. But for everyone else, despite that unfortunate firing, if you'd like to watch my brand new podcast with Michelle, check it out not right now. After today's show, I actually uploaded it right before this video over at youtube.com/aconbutwith. There's also an audio version, links, blah, blah, blah. Hey, this was a really fun and interesting one. It's been awesome to watch her career since she left BuzzFeed. She just throws herself into the new, the different, the uncomfortable, and is someone that has a career based off of locking himself in a room 6 to 8 hours a day. I was fascinated to talk to her. So definitely check that out. But with that said, buckle up, hit that like button, and let's just jump into it. The first thing we're going to talk about today is our douchebag of the day. So coronavirus, you've heard about it, we've talked about it. As of this morning, 490 people reportedly have died in China from it, 2 in Hong Kong and the Philippines. And the reason we're talking about this today is there was a scare on an airplane. Reportedly, the flight was going from Canada to Jamaica. You had 243 people on board. During the flight, one of the passengers mentions that they came from the Hunan province, and the next thing you know, people are in masks. The flight gets turned around, 2 flights end up getting canceled. And as it turns out, it was a prank to make a viral video. Now, the self-described artist actually gave an interview with the news. I'm not going to show his face, this primarily because he even says,
I'm an artist. Any publicity for myself is good publicity.
He says his name, we're not going to include it, and this douchebag explains his thinking as far as why he was doing this.
I stood up, I said, can I have everybody's attention? I just came back from Hunan province. That was it.
Why would you say that?
Well, I had my camera with me. I was looking to get a viral video. I was looking to get it up on all the social media platforms. I figured it would invoke some type of reaction, not on the plane, more people seeing on social media going, wow, this kid's got some balls, or this kid is crazy, whatever it is.
Now, he's also apologized, mentioned that what he did was wrong, but ultimately, as far as repercussions, he was reportedly arrested and charged with mischief and breach of recognizance. And he's set to appear in court on March 9th. And personally, I do hope something happens here. I mean, I think at the very least, he should be held liable for the economic cost of what he did. And the reason I feel like this is it feels increasingly more common that someone is an artist, that they're a creator, but really they're just a professional asshole. Like, people are dying out there. There's genuine fear out there. You have 14-day quarantines out there. And I call bullshit when he says, I apologize for my ignorance. I didn't realize it was an epidemic. What ignorance are you talking about? You said Hunan province because you knew you would get a reaction. You even talked about getting a viral video. Also, according to a report from Toronto City News who you spoke with, you apparently didn't just say you were there, you said, quote, word for word, I said, I just came back from Hunan province, the capital of the coronavirus. I'm not feeling too well. Thank you. You also try to half-assedly compare this to a not panic-inducing announcement you said that you did on a plane. But the only ignorance I see possibly connected to this situation is that your father didn't have the foresight to pull out. But that's the story, some of my personal takeaway, and of course I pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts on this? And then let's talk about this incredibly messy story. It's an update to a story that we talked about in the past, but there's a lot of twists and turns here. And this story is about the case surrounding Dr. Grant Robichaud, who is a surgeon in Southern California, and his girlfriend, Sarissa Riley. Now, if you don't know or you don't remember, the two had been accused of drugging and assaulting women and were charged back in September of 2018. That case making headlines for a number of reasons. First, Robichaud was already sort of a high-profile figure. He was named Orange Coast Magazine's Most Eligible Bachelor in 2013. In 2014, he appeared on a Bravo reality show called The Online Dating Rituals of the American Male. And secondly, some of the details surrounding the allegations against these two were disturbing. Tony Rackauckas, who was the Orange County District Attorney at that time, led the charges against them and originally hit Robichaud with 9 charges, Riley with 7. Among those counts, both were charged with rape by use of drugs. Rackauckas said that the two would meet their alleged victims in bars or dating apps, then taking them to Robichaud's home where they assaulted them. And of note here, Rackauckas talked of video evidence, saying, there are several videos where the women in the videos appear to be highly intoxicated beyond the ability to consent or resist, and they are barely responsive to the defendant's sexual advances. And as far as how much footage there was, Rackauckas said that there could be 1,000 videos of women who were assaulted, and he also urged more women to come forward. What we ended up seeing is in October of 2018, more did, leading to Robichaud and Riley getting hit with more charges and both facing life in prison. But then, the following month, we see a notable change. In November, Rackauckas loses his re-election bid to be Orange County DA. And that job, that position, that spot, it ends up going to Todd Spitzer after sort of a heated rivalry between the two. So one of the things this new DA does is he ends up ordering a review of the evidence of this particular case. And what we ended up seeing announced yesterday is that all of the charges against Robichaud and Riley were to be dropped because there was was not enough evidence to support them. In the statement, he said that the review was led by 2 veteran sexual assault prosecutors who spent 3 months going over every piece of evidence. And this review, which he referred to as a de novo review, included thousands of photos, videos, and chats from computers, hundreds of hours of audio recording, thousands of pages of documents, as well as text messages on dating apps, emails, and interviews. But said this review revealed that there was not a single video or photograph depicting an incapacitated woman being sexually assaulted by Robichaux or Riley. Also saying that there were no witnesses who came forward saying they saw the defendants assault an unconscious woman, with Spitzer even going on to claim that Rackauckus spun this case to gain media attention to help his re-election efforts, and added in a statement, the prior district attorney and his chief of staff manufactured this case and repeatedly misstated the evidence to lead the public and vulnerable women to believe that these 2 individuals plied up to 1,000 women with drugs and alcohol in order to sexually assault them, and videotaped the assaults. And then going on to claim that what these 2 did to these defendants and to the women involved in this case is a travesty. Right, in this update, this announcement, it was met with a ton of reactions. You had people online saying women making the accusations who could testify should be enough to keep the charges. Others kind of wondering which Orange County DA they should believe here. Some horrified at the prospect that the previous Orange County DA would have misled the public like this. We also ended up seeing the people involved in the case responding as well. You had Robichaux's lawyer, Philip Cohen, speaking to reporters saying, I don't want to be overly dramatic or hyperbolic, but the mere filing of this case has destroyed irreparably 2 lives. He has become persona non grata with an entire city, an entire state, and I don't want to be exaggerating, but probably an entire country. But then on the other side of this, you also had Michael Fell, who's representing one of the accusers in the case, speaking to the Los Angeles Times, where he said, for somebody to report, for them to go through what she had to go through with the police, for the district attorney's office to file criminal charges, for her to have to be patient the last 2 years while the case is being prosecuted, only for it to be dropped, she's going to be devastated. And you also had Rackauckus speaking out against the decision himself, saying, any prosecutor should think long and hard before dismissing such a case where multiple women have independently come forward. I just hope they're not being sold down the river for some twisted political motive. And ultimately, that's where we are with this right now, and I'm personally left with just more questions. One, based off the way that everything has been described, it does sound like of sex at the very least. There were videos and photos, but the new DA and his team are making a judgment call saying that none of the women in those are incapacitated. But others there might question the move, saying just because someone's not completely incapacitated doesn't mean that they weren't raped, right? Were some still drugged or plied with liquor or drugs and they weren't in the right state of mind to be able to consent? Or are we looking at something that's far different than a judgment call? Because these are some pretty bold accusations against the former DA, and the kind of stuff being talked about here, it feels like there would be charges associated with that, right? Because if you have someone manufacturing something, making things up, ruining people's lives for your own personal political gain, that person should obviously be punished and held accountable. So right now, I'm waiting to see what other information comes out. Yeah, right now, this just feels like a weird, messy, crazy debacle. And of course, with that, I would love to know your thoughts on this case. But from that, I want to share some stuff I love today, and Today in Awesome, brought to you by Phil.Ting.com. And Ting, if you don't know, is the fantastic and easy to switch to pay what you actually use cell service. You just pay a fair price for the talk, text, and data that you actually use. So if you use less 1 month, you pay less. All right, so let's say you're off at around stable Wi-Fi, or you just don't need a lot of cellular data. Why pay a set monthly data plan? There's no contracts, overage fees, or any other carrier tricks. And Ting gives you complete control over your cell phone account. You can set alerts and caps for each device on your account to keep your usage in check. And you can always bring your phone number to Ting as well. There's no need to get a brand new one because just the thought of having to do that sounds exhausting, so the convenience is appreciated. Also, there's some huge news coming soon. Ting will be adding Verizon as a third network option, so if you've already checked out Ting but you couldn't get coverage, stay tuned. And the best parts of this, almost any device will work with Ting, and Ting customers pay on average just $23 per month for one device. So just head on over to Phil.Ting.com or click that link in the description to check your phone's compatibility right now and get $25 off your bill. And the first bit of awesome is a little bit of a tease. If you like the look of this incredibly comfy hoodie or the way it looks in black and red, which is the one I wore on the podcast, like the way it looks, it's so soft and comfy, and it's like a hug, like the hug I never got from my father. That's not actually true. My father is very loving, but I'm trying to sell merch. A limited run of those will be going live tomorrow over at shopdefranco.com. So yeah, if you want to snag one, good luck and be on the lookout tomorrow. Then we got the Honest trailer for Men in Black International. Then Gus Johnson gave us people who post motivational quotes online. The Atlantic gave us the Syrian doctor who saved children in an underground hospital. Jimmy Eat World was on NPR Music Tiny Desk Concert. Then after you definitely watched or listened to my podcast with Michelle Khare, she also has a fantastic new video out. She threw herself into Fire Academy, and it is a wild one to watch. Then we got a really interesting teaser trailer of Spiral, which is Chris Rock's Saw reboot. It stars Chris and Samuel L. Jackson, and I'm actually really excited for this. And if you want to see the full versions of everything I just shared, the secret link of the day, really anything at all, links as always are in the description down below. And then, how do we even talk about last night's State of the Union? Right, there's the fact-checking angle of it. What was true, untrue, misconstrued, maybe kind of of cherry-picked data. Then, unfortunately, separate from facts and issues, the effectiveness of what was said and done by Trump and others. I've seen a number of people reference the entire night or just moments as theater, as even reality TV. Right, so what I will say, separate from facts, claims, all of that stuff, I do think for Trump, this will prove to be an effective night. This speech, which at times had rah-rah Republican rhetoric, but then also did hit on things that I think could be appealing to moderates, paired with the emotional stories and guests that he invited to the State of the Union, as well as the Republicans in the Senate will acquit Trump today. I do not think that it would be surprising if Trump got a bump from here. So that said, regarding the fact-checking of some claims, I'm not going to nickel and dime things. Right, you have places taking on Trump's claim that he implemented historic and record-setting tax cuts. Right, that not true. This, according to the Treasury Department. When Trump's tax cuts are measured as a share of the U.S. economy, they rank as the 8th largest in the last 100 years. Right, accurate, but still most people want to say, well, it was a meaningful tax cut. Then you have places taking on Trump's claim that since his election, we've created 7 million new jobs. Right there, technically, he's using the number from election night, not when he actually took office. There, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, starting February 2017, 6.7 million jobs have been created. But there, I would say most people are going to say, hey, new jobs are new jobs. I think something that would be more effective would be pointing out that Trump inherited an economy and a country on the rise. For example, the Obama administration inherited the housing and financial crisis, but in the last 3 years, under the Obama administration, 8 million jobs were created. Once again, those are comparisons and the conversation being made if you already believe that the president is inherently connected to the number of jobs being created. And so I guess for me, when it comes to the economy and the fact-checking and talking about it, I think it's really the focus on what he inherited and what happens from here. Because here's the thing, Trump is correct when he says the unemployment rate is the lowest it's been in half a century, right? 3.5%, but economists believe that our economy is also slowing down. In 2018, our gross domestic product went up 2.9%, 2019, 2.3%, and economists expect it to be even lower this year. But there, to be fair, since we are making comparisons, Obama also had ups and downs when it came to the GDP. And at this point, I'll once again say, we're only touching on some things in this moment. If you want to see more detailed fact-checking, things that are true, things that were misconstrued, stuff like that, I'll link to it down below. But probably the biggest thing to me when it came to fact-checking was regarding healthcare. During his speech, Trump said this.
I've also made an ironclad pledge to American families. We will always protect patients with pre-existing conditions.
But based off of actions we've seen, that is not true. And this all stems around the debate around the Affordable Care Act, or as some call it, Obamacare. And among other things, the ACA or Obamacare guarantees insurance coverage for patients with pre-existing medical conditions. Right, and just for transparency's sake, the pre-existing condition part is really important to me, not only because I have PKD, my children might have PKD, my dad has it. While the system in place now is nowhere near perfect, I just remember the struggles he faced having a pre-existing condition. But jumping back to Trump and his claims around pre-existing conditions, you had people pointing out that in the past, Trump and his administration had taken several different efforts to weaken and repeal Obamacare. This through legislation he supported, regulations imposed by his administration, and now a lawsuit the Justice Department is litigating that could make Obamacare unconstitutional. Right, so outlawing it would also be scrapping the guarantee of coverage for pre-existing conditions, at least for the time being, which is significant because Trump has not announced a plan that seems like it would actually fill in the gap. We've seen him back the American Health Care Act, but that's something that would allow insurers to charge possibly prohibitively high premiums for people with pre-existing conditions. But you wouldn't really be covering pre-existing conditions if it wasn't economically accessible. And in general, I have concerns about Trump in the healthcare space because I remember before he was president, he said, quote, that he was the first and only potential GOP candidate to state that there will be no cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. But reportedly, his 2020 budget proposal would cut $1.5 trillion in Medicaid over the next decade. But that said, we then move to moments. Regarding Donald Trump and Nancy Pelosi, there were a few, and there were 3 key moments from them. One, it appears as is customary, she extended her hand for a handshake. He didn't give her one. Some saw this as a snub, others saying he maybe just didn't see it, noting that he also didn't shake Mike Pence's hand. Then Pelosi, for her part, also broke tradition by not saying, I have the privilege and distinct honor of presenting to you the President of the United States.
Members of Congress, the President of the United States.
And then, of course, finally, one of the most talked about moments since it happened, the ripping in half of the president's speech and throwing it on the table in front of her. And the response to that moment was very polarizing. A number of people cheering it on, saying the president's words here, especially his lies, are worthless, whereas others called it a tantrum or disrespectful. The White House Twitter account in particular framing this as being disrespectful to the guests. One of the last surviving Tuskegee Airmen, the survival of a child born at 21 weeks, the mourning families of Rocky Jones and Kayla Mueller, a service member's reunion with his family, that's her legacy. And while there were people that agreed, there was also people that were essentially like, hey, if you think she was being indirectly disrespectful by ripping that up, wait till you find find out what Donald Trump has said about Gold Star families directly. But much like I said regarding Trump and the effectiveness of his speech, we're gonna have to wait to see what the fallout from this is. Is it actually a good thing? Right, the Democrats going into the primaries talked about unity. It's all about beating, the big bad. There's a lot of infighting, as we talked about yesterday with the Iowa caucus. This embarrassment, confusion, and Democrats in general lose when there's not a lot of excitement and unity. But we'll see. Also, among the other notable moments and call-outs, you had those moments that the White House Twitter account mentioned. One of the last surviving Tuskegee Airmen, right, the pointing to that little baby girl who was born at 21 weeks, and also families that were mourning. Then kind of the Oprah or Ellen-esque reunion of a service member with his children and his wife. He also surprised a student with an opportunity scholarship. He also pointed out and recognized Juan Guaido. Right, the United States has recognized him as the true leader in Venezuela. So that, it was used as a swipe towards Venezuela, but also it was also a moment that was used to swing at Democrats, or kind of the continuing nature of painting them all with the broad socialism brush. And then, of course, one of the most notable moments was when Trump awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Rush Limbaugh, who, if you don't know, he's a conservative radio talk show host who's been very vocal about his support of Trump. Also, it comes a day after Limbaugh announced that he'd been diagnosed with an advanced stage of lung cancer. And he also wasn't just announcing that you're going to get it, he actually had First Lady Melania Trump put it on him right then and there. That was definitely a polarizing moment, just because Rush Limbaugh is a polarizing figure. There's a lot of love for him, a lot of hate for him. Although I will say, random fact, this isn't a comment on that situation or his diagnosis or anything like that. It was really odd for me the other day to see Rush Limbaugh and Michael J. Fox trending. Rush, because he made the announcement, a number of people then sharing, what he said about Michael J. Fox, seemingly exaggerating his disease. Random fact, without that clip, without that moment, there might not be a Philip DeFranco show. I think one of the first videos I ever made, but definitely one of the first news videos I ever made, was a reaction to that moment and clip. Yeah, it was just kind of a random moment where I was like, if there was no Rush Limbaugh, I might not be talking to you right now. But yeah, then in addition to that, there was also a moment that I think Donald Trump probably didn't plan for. Right after Trump finished talking about protecting the Second Amendment, we saw this moment. Right, and the man being escorted away is Fred Guttenberg, whose daughter Jamie was killed during the Parkland school shooting. And for some context here, Guttenberg had actually been invited to the address by Pelosi. He's now an active gun control advocate, but later in the night we saw him apologize, tweeting, "Tonight was a rough night. I disrupted the State of the Union and was detained because I let my emotions get the best of me. I simply want to be able to deal with the reality of gun violence and not have to listen to the lies about the Second Amendment as happened tonight. That said, I should not have yelled out. I am thankful for the overwhelming support that I am receiving. However, I do owe my family and friends an apology. I have tried to conduct myself with dignity throughout this process, and I will do better as I pursue gun safety." And along with that, we saw the hashtag I'm with Fred trending, with support coming from others like California Governor Gavin Newsom and Parkland survivor David Hogg. So even without diving into everything, that is a lot. Of course, I'd love to know your thoughts in general about this. Also of note, as we were finishing up today's show, Donald Trump in the Senate was acquitted, though notably we did see one Republican vote against Trump, that being Mitt Romney. But yeah, more to come there. We're going to see the developments, the fallout from the last 24, 36 hours. Yeah. With that said, of course, I'd love to know your thoughts on that, anything at all, but that does bring us to the end of today's show. Thanks, of course, for watching my little daily news show, whether it be a part of your much bigger news diet or your daily dose of poison. Also, if you're looking for more to watch today, you should definitely check out that brand new podcast I did with Michelle Khare, or maybe you just missed the last Philip DeFranco show, you want to catch up, click or tap right there to watch either of those right now. But with that said, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow.
I hope you liked the video. Subscribe if you like it.